Hello and welcome to the Watson Weekend. We're your hosts. I'm Rick Watson.
I am not Jessica Liseski. I am Nick Kaplan. Excited to be here.
Great to have you here, Nick. This is your weekly dose of medicine with just enough sugar to make it go down well. Your go to source of news in retail, technology, and e commerce.
So I continue to practice to try to level up the professionalism of this show. So hopefully I am half a shoe of Jess, but excited to be here. Both of us coming back a little tired today, right, from Shop Talk, but
Yeah. We
it's
both
good.
landed after midnight on the same
Yes.
flight.
Yes, the Kaplan watch and travel together. But before we jump in, speaking of Shop Talk, there at Shop Talk was our sponsor today, Miracle. And Miracle is bringing you today's episode. And they are a catalyst of commerce. We all know, seeing the show, how much e-commerce is changing. And if you are still playing by the rules of the past, which seeing the show, plenty of people still are, you're leaving money on the table, and a lot of it actually. So Miracle empowers 450 retailers to successfully flip the script and transform their businesses by creating a flywheel of AI-powered marketplaces and retail media solutions. A lot packed in there that we'll talk about today a bit. So what is
Correct.
stopping you from joining that movement, people? So,
It's hard to say.
right?
Maybe they were still hungover from Shop Talk.
I mean, I am, as my byline says, I am shop talked out.
Yeah.
So,
Um, let's get into it, shall we? I mean, we'll start with the headline Hangover.
yes. Well,
Headline Hangover this week is sponsored by Passport. Thank you to the team at Passport for helping put on
yes,
the program.
yes. They were also a person we saw at Shop Talk. So, but as we do dive into the headline hangover, something I really love talking about is the notion of inventory and like its impact on like your business potentially. And so what's we're seeing happening, we've seen this before. I was just talking about it yesterday, actually, September of 21, when the music stopped, the government stopped printing money, and people stopped spending. Inventory piled up because everyone had really bought aggressively into a trend that didn't
Hmm.
materialize. We once again are seeing now this inventory front loading, which is wow, we have to get it before the tariffs hit. And I heard something this morning about the average U.S. car, not domestic, not international, domestic will go up by the tariffs by about $3,000. So, in order to get a beat, we're seeing international imports, people trading all over the world, bringing in things quickly, and I, I, I'm scared. I mean, I
Hmm.
think that we're seeing a lot of negativity on the consumer side. I think Shop Talk, which is great for information, showed that a bit.
Hmm.
And I am definitely thinking that we could be seeing um, another period of inventory management through price change, which is never good for a brand and certainly has a ripple effect throughout the industry. I mean, I don't know what you think. Same thing?
Yeah, I think hopefully you don't have to buy a car soon, number one, or if you're going to do it, you're going to do it before May. Second is I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen next. And so that could freeze a few of these categories. I definitely have heard retailers bringing in inventory early. We saw that during COVID too. And it didn't end well because if you're bringing in extra inventory, what do you have? A lot of cash tied up in inventory. And if the bottom falls out on the consumer, like it looks like it might, then the CFO could be left holding the bag, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, before we go to our next piece in the headline hangover, I'll just say one other thing, which is it's a catch 22. You are sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't, because if you don't act quickly and the trade war just continues to ratchet up, a lot of businesses whose profit margins are thin to begin with are just underwater.
Hmm.
And second, if you do what we're seeing, which is react too quickly and bring it in, and it doesn't materialize because of all the uncertainty, you're in a really tough spot. So
Yeah.
I do not envy a business right now with a long lead time because to your comment about bringing in goods early, people are like, oh, well, let's just move our supply chain from China to Vietnam, right?
Hmm.
Which is a far more trade-friendly country. You know how long that takes? It's like,
Yeah,
right? So it'll be
it takes some
interesting to see how this
time.
one plays out.
So yeah, I mean, so that the next story from Headline Hangover, if you saw this week, if you at Shop Talk, you might have missed it, but it's kind of hard to miss it because literally the OpenAI team said their GPUs or graphics processing units are bleeding from the extra use of new image upgrades on ChatGPT, which we've used in some of the visuals in this episode now. And I think the question is, it's getting very much easier to produce things now. And so the idea from, the time and the effort from idea to execution has slipped to nothing. So what does that mean? Does that mean we'll find out who's actually boring? Or, what does the battle go to the creativity and the ideas? Or like what's your opinion?
I mean, I definitely think a boring barometer will be a derivative of this. I saw something the other day through social media of like a gigantic tidal wave just scooping up a cruise ship of people, and it was so real looking. I think that yeah, we're sort of breaking through another inflection point. We've talked throughout the show about um, the cost of creative. I mean, it is
Hmm.
massive. And, another thing that sort of is in the news this week related to this topic is like all the trademark stuff that ChatGPT is sort of bouncing up against with
Hmm.
likenesses and celebrity. And so I think that we're feeling our way through, but I think that there's like a whole world of consideration here regarding the ability to create an asset and distribute it effectively, quickly, for good and you know what, for bad. I mean, I think
Right.
that we're seeing a lot happen. So, um, I have ChatGPT Pro. I've played around with it. I really got it for Operator, but the image creation vehicle is incredible. And when you put a really talented creator who has time to use it, it's going to be remarkable what it can do.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the three main engines, Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini, are really starting to differentiate themselves in different areas. And so you see, I've even seen e-commerce platforms now building Gemini into the search, and retailers building directly on top of Gemini um, in their own custom search implementations, away from even like Elasticsearch and those sorts of solutions of the past. Um, but Claude has gotten finally a little more real time, and I think has different use cases it's better than. So there's a lot that we're going to continue to have to say about this topic, but I think that's a good wrap for our headline hangover today. We're going to get into a little bit of shop talk, and I think there's a couple of things that we'll talk about. RMW Commerce, on behalf of an e-commerce platform that's coming out of Germany to the North American market called Scale, as we put on a debate together that you were a part of, Nick, and we'll see some clips of that in a moment. Part of the conversation has been like, look, the industry has been having this debate about headless in the last 4 or 5 years, and we even saw during Shop Talk, one of the co-founders of VTEX posts his like dramatically leaving the Mock Alliance, and then there was another post by an equally self-interested mock vendor posting the other side of it. And so, it's unclear how much truth was actually delivered in either of these posts, but it kind of just shows the debate in the world right now. So I'm never missing an opportunity. I'm going to be at the Composable event at the end of April, and hopefully be able to talk to Casper from the Mock Alliance, as well as Mariano there, who I've known for a long time. So looking to get to the bottom and like get to some ground truth there. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think I would be very curious to hear. your insights coming out of that conversation, as I think mock is a really interesting um, I mean, it's a really interesting concept, and I think there's a lot of great things to it. But I certainly think, as all things evolve, I think it has also reached a point where it's sort of like, what problem is it solving?
Mhm.
And I think there could be one, but I think there's a lot of nuances to it. So,
Yeah.
but
So
like debate is healthy. I mean, I think that there ultimately can be winners and losers of debates, but I think that what really is most important about debate is the opportunity for people to hear the different sides and make their own decisions. So,
yeah, and I think with that, we talked about the events. You were in the event. We had, I think, the format was crazy, the response to it. I mean, everyone that attended and the
so much fun.
debaters were like, so many people prepared so well. And I heard from a lot of people like, oh, I didn't get to come to your event, but like, it's crazy what you're doing with the format. And so I would love to show just like a little clip of what we've shown. And Victor, who's in the audience live right now, he's here. We're not going to reveal the results of the debate just yet. And I'll say that the voting was close.
Victor's a great debater. Let's see it. Let's check it out.
Correct. All right. Go ahead, Victor.
Well, thanks, Rick, for having me. Thanks for the layup. Listen, this is an easy one. You know, if you can have the debate whether you should replatform or not, fine. Once you decide you should, the choice of where to go forward is pretty clear for me. If you're like me and you care about scaling your business and growing your business to its full extent and not being limited by other people, headless is the way to go. I care about the customer experience. I don't need to be told by my platform what shipping option I should list first in my checkout. I don't need to be told by my platform what payments I should take or how my front end should look like. So it's all about the customer experience. It's all about how you present yourself to your customers. And Headless enables that in a much better way than an old age monolithic platform.
It was a strong start, I thought.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Victor is a super smart person, really well prepared. I think as a teaser to everybody, you got the event was amazing. I really think that from of format perspective, definitely heard people after the event talking about how it's a good format. So
Yeah.
totally worth checking out. And I think it's a real debate. And I think
Right.
that we chatted a bit about this. I mean, I feel like over the last 4 days we chatted about everything when you travel with someone and work with someone. But I feel as though, and I would love to hear your kind of
Mm.
reflection on this, that there just appears from a headless perspective, as a contained person, I argued that side. I feel like there's an accessibility and like a conversation around it that isn't so
Mm.
like we used to talk about commerce tools and Shopify. I think there's a different dialogue happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it used to be, and I've, good friends with folks on every side of this debate. And it used to be that if these two vendors or sets, with these differing philosophies were in the same deal, that one of them was in the wrong deal.
Right.
And I
Right.
think something changed in the last 3 years that almost every deal became a jump ball. And during this period, I mean, I think everyone would really admit Shopify gained a lot of momentum during COVID. And also at the same time, vendors dabbled in other solutions to the front end, some that should not maybe have chosen it. And I think that's given some of the bad headless implementations a black eye from that side. So
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that a lot of this is what was discussed in 4 really good, well-structured conversations. Can't Before we change topics, I can't let you get away with not calling out your referee. For those
yeah,
that don't know Rick Watson, he goes all the way.
Yeah, the referee outfit was great. It was not a Temu outfit this time. I
It fit.
stepped it up a bit. I was on Amazon.
Nice.
It was officially a Halloween outfit. It came with a whistle and a referee flag. And then we even had audiences vote with red and green cards, which you'll see in the recaps.
So fun.
So we're excited there. But that was just part of our delivery contribution to the Shop Talk community. The rest of Shop Talk, I think we were going to do a little bit of a fun format, which is kind of the two up and two down, where we can sort of each start with, let's start on the positive side, although I know you would probably start with your like Larry David,
I mean,
rain cloud
yeah,
with the
exactly.
negative side, but we're on the Watson show, so we need to start with the optimistic side. Um, Starting at the top, my number one top is really just the relationships and the side events. I mean, I really think that's why you go to these conferences. And I think, and I was speaking about this on the weekly this morning when I was recording it, if you start to go to conferences for more than 5, 10 years, you see a lot of the same people, you develop relationships, you start to see people as friends through multiple companies, and you realize that relationships travel and business travels from vendor to vendor, regardless of, and credibility to a vendor accrues from the people that go there. And so immediately, if you see a person you respect and trust, go to a vendor that you're like, I've never heard of that vendor before, but the fact that so and so is going there actually immediately raises the bar there. So I think that kind of relationship aspect is important.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I can just use myself as an example. I attended my first Shop Talk 4 years ago. I spoke there, and then from there I went, right after that Shop Talk, I went to the lead. I went to Commerce Next. I spoke at both of those because really, I had been an operator head down for all of my career, and
Hmm.
I'd never attended, and it's
Yeah.
probably professionally my biggest regret. You see people who build community with one another, and the friendships are important, the fun is important, but the network is critically important. And as someone
Hmm.
now that is a little bit more like, grizzly, and deals with a lot of younger people in what we do and what I do, it's my biggest piece of advice, like build your brand. And so it is incredible. I thought it was a really great event, and obviously not without some challenges, which I'm sure will be on
Yeah.
one of our downs. But yes, I completely agree with you. There is there's a lot going on. I think I read a post from Dave Finnegan, who's a great example of someone that has been around and has built an
Hmm.
incredible network, about you get more accomplished at a dinner than you would in like 5 meetings.
Right.
And it's true.
Yeah, I think that's the case, especially at dinner where there's no agenda.
Right. I heard one story. We hosted a dinner and
Correct.
was sitting next to someone in our community who was trying to get a friend. We had an extra seat to come join, and he said his friend, um, was at a dinner that they had just closed the door and the PowerPoint presentation
Ugh.
was going on, which is just like, come on,
This is
like you
like a
got to have more.
face palm moment. I heard another person who came to our dinner who abandoned their other quote unquote dinner. It was advertised as a dinner, yet they walked in the door and it was then shown to be drinks.
Uh,
And so if you're
that
there at 6:30,
yeah,
that's extremely
that's
disappointing.
very disappointing. I mean,
What is your number one from the show, Nick?
um, I really loved. I'm gonna change it up. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about. There's so many, but I think that we've crossed into the high on everybody's list, like combination of influencer, TikTok shop,
Hmm.
Amazon. I had so many conversations about the accessibility of like TikTok shops and how people are thinking about it, but really influencer. And like to me as an operator, influencer has been such a let's get a whole bunch of money and give one person like 50 grand. And that is not what's happening.
Right.
There's all these different solutions. There's one called Statosphere that is incredible, that are now thinking through like how do we build for small brands, communicative ways to get to small influencers to accretively build community.
Hmm.
And that ties back to like another in sync with that was like the whole notion of what's the value as a customer, not a
Hmm.
transaction. But like that to me was a big one, like influencer. Like influencer is growing and growing and growing,
Right.
and people are really solving those problems, and that's meaningful. Like
Yeah.
that's a huge top for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the platforms that help you manage influencers, and you think you mentioned one of them, but there are multiple of them that are raising quite a bit of money right now.
Crazy.
And
Yeah.
so it's almost like it's eclipsing, and maybe not eclipsing the retail media hype, but it's approaching it.
So one thing I want to add, because I think it's a really important distinction, is like there's a difference between like traditional affiliate
Hmm.
and influencer. And like affiliate is, thought through Rakuten and all of these other solutions where it's a platform where through UTMs you can get credit for things, and it's largely it's cumbersome, and it's also very coupon driven in terms of their distribution. This is not that, and people are figuring out how to
Right.
literally get like a person with their 500 to 5,000 to 50,000 person community to a brand and get them to work together.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good one, and it would be a mistake for us not to mention it. My second thing from the show is I think it's a good trend, but it's definitely something worth calling out, and I call it the shadow show. And what is the shadow show? Obviously, you go to ShopTalk, you pay, like if you're a brand, you have to have some number of meetings and you get comped and you get to go to the show. If you're kind of like in between, if you're a vendor, you can sponsor the show and get some number of passes, or if you have a booth, etc. Or you have to pay like almost $5,000 to get a ticket.
It's a
Well,
lot.
most people don't want to freaking do that. They just want to go to the show, have the relationship. I don't know how many people I talked to this year, but I would say it's more than any other year that I've been here that people said, I'm going, I don't have a badge, and I don't care. And it wasn't necessarily that people would go and they were like, oh, I don't have a badge, but I'm going to grab someone else's. It's almost like I know the value. I don't care about the value of the show floor. It's zero. I don't care about the value of the talks. It's zero to me. The value is the dinners, the side events, all these things, and I can generate as much, if not more, business focusing my time where meeting the people that I care about.
I couldn't agree more. Um, I'd love to get a stat on the number of people that attended the Shop Talk like venue, but not the actual like inside event.
Yeah,
It is for a pretty decent sized group of people expensive. And I do think that the brands and operators have figured out interesting ways, whether it's like suites, restaurants,
mm-hmm.
events, and all off property or peripheral to get people together, as well as I will leave them nameless, but I think it's a wonderful solution in sort of the measurement space
Mm-hmm.
that has historically had a booth that did not have a booth
Mm.
and was able to like just meet up with him for like 15 minutes yesterday, say hello, but he said he was so happy because it's so expensive. It's so impossible to measure the ROI. And I think we would both agree, right? Deals
Right.
don't get done
Right.
at Shop Talk. And so like how people are thinking about going back to influencer for a second and diversifying media spend, people are diversifying spend. I mean, I think that like Shop Talk is sort of akin to Facebook and Google. It's like the CPAs are just rising exponentially,
Right.
and
It's a good
people are
one.
like diversifying. So I saw a ton of people do the meetups. That was going to be my other top.
Yeah.
And everybody had great things to say about the meetups on
Hmm.
both sides. I think ShopTalk did a wonderful job of matching brands and prospects. That's everybody had not a single person that I spoke to, and I spoke to a lot, regretted the meetup. So good
Hmm.
for you, ShopTalk, getting people who are matches matched. Speed
Yeah.
dating is real.
Yeah. I did not get to spend too much time in the meetup, so it's good to get your perspective there. I think there's always people who say some of them are going to be clunkers, but if you have 10 meetups and you have three that worked out, that's still three
That's
relationships you didn't have before. And it's certainly hard to find them on the show floor, brands can't even turn around their badges anymore because the same thing is printed on
Both
both sides
sides,
now,
right? Yeah,
which
yeah,
used
right.
to be the thing you could do at an event. Um, so I think it's worthwhile to give some kudos to Shop Talk for calling it out, but now we're gonna rain on the Shop Talk parade a little bit because not everything was perfect, and there's always room for improvement, and there are certain things that are getting worse.
Wait, I still think, did I have to do my second good, right? I don't know.
I
Did
thought
I?
I thought your second good was the meetups, and the first one
Oh,
was
I said it
the
was gonna
yeah.
be. Sorry, but
Oh,
my
okay.
second good, which I think knowing you as well as I do, and like for everybody that
Huh.
does not know Rick well, like I did. There was so much like happening, and we'll talk about that because that's going to be one of my negatives. But like Rick was like zooming around the floor, and like so I really liked the floor. I thought Shop Talk. I like sat down at one point and did the math in my head. I'm like, how much
Mm,
money could Shop Talk be making to like
wow.
make this floor? Like I was on a platform. There was like crazy snacks. Like Shop Talk had its own swag. I liked the floor. I thought it felt like kind of it was more spread out. The show felt big, and I thought it felt plush. Like I felt they did lounges.
Mm.
It felt rich. Like I don't know. I
Yeah.
liked it. I liked the floor.
Yeah, I'm gonna use this as a chance to go into my first negative, which was the show floor. I thought it was poorly organized. It was hard for me to find things. I felt like if I walked in one day and then I tried to find the same booth the next day, it wasn't like clear where to go if I didn't remember exactly where it was. Um, so
You needed to get the app.
yeah, the app. I didn't download the app this year. That's part of my problem. I mean,
I did it in the middle of the show because I
do I
couldn't find
do
somebody.
I
But
need to download the app? But speaking of show floor, one of the reasons I didn't like the show floor, it wasn't just because of the floor itself, which I agree was very well pointed. There was always access to food and drink and
yeah,
puppies and all kinds of crazy shit that she should never have. As soon as Shop Talk becomes a state fair, like next year, I expect like a fried Twinkie
did you
at
see?
Shop Talk,
Did you see? And I
which is a
thought I'm
good,
like,
which is a good message for you vendors. Fried Twinkie
uh,
or fried Snickers bar next year.
so there was a pickleball court. Did you see it? And
I
like they were
saw it. I
they
didn't
were
go over to it.
oh, they were playing in the day, and I'm like, wow, could you imagine
No.
having to be next at the hit the doink, 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 doink. So people, to give context, like last year, I think there was like an engraved Stanley that I want to say Narvar did it, right?
Yeah.
And like Stanley was so big, and the line was like 100 people.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, how valuable is your time? You can't just go out and spend the $35 and just pay to get it engraved.
Right.
Everybody like ratcheted up their swag, and the booths were big. So I don't
Right.
know. I
Yeah.
think you got to be there, and you have to sort of have a presence. And if you're gonna be there, but hopefully people did actually go back to. There was like this lounge, like the logo lounge, which was this like Hollywood like Shop Talk
Mm.
sign, and behind it was a lounge. Behind that were some really interesting like the teeny solutions. I
Yeah.
always find those people to be like the
Totally
interesting
agree.
ones, right? Because I remember speaking of Narvar, like a long time ago, when he was like that person, that single solution when
Hmm.
it was just happening, and that's where sometimes it really starts. So
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Part of my problem with the show floor wasn't just the floor itself; it was the messaging on the floor. I thought it was incredibly uninspiring. Um,
what do you mean?
Everyone just people, earlier this year at NRF, and then last year it was like the AI floor. This year it was the agentic floor. Everything was
Right,
freaking agentic.
right. That was my
No one
that's
knows
my
what the hell it means,
that's my second. That's my first negative right
and it
there.
was comically ridiculous to listen to sales engineers and AEs on the show floor trying to explain what the hell their solution did and why it was valuable.
I
Even
mean,
if they were like, oh, we put a chat bot on the homepage now.
yeah.
Fantastic.
I wrote a piece not like a week or two ago about the overuse of the word agentic, knowing heading toward Shopify it was going to be like this year's buzzword. There's
Yeah.
like Generative AI was last year. Retail media was last year.
Yeah.
The metaverse was like 2 or 3 years ago, right? Every show has its word.
Web3. Remember that
Exactly.
one?
Exactly. Yeah. Funny. Look, there's a fundamental difference between a bot and an agent. And I think that there are all these different companies, I'd say most, that have used predictive and like heightened probabilities to create what might be a thought response. Whereas an agent, as I wrote, like an agent is like my friend,
Hmm.
right? Like an agent knows me and is able to interact with me based on like conversational. And
Right.
I just think that what it's demonstrative of, and I don't know how you felt about this, it's so many solutions that are overlapping now,
Hmm.
so many that get rolled up and bought. And now it's like, I've used this before, but like personalization was a thing at one point.
Right.
There is no viable solo personalized solution. It's just part of everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that companies that are getting eaten up are just like, oh, we're gonna call our bot an agent and it's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that
By the
was
way, if you're making friends with your chatbot, I'm going to say you need to get out more.
there's a Futurism wrote an article that I actually read today that there's like a growing group of people who are over like they're becoming addicted to ChatGPT, its overusage and speaking to it emotionally. So yeah, you're probably right.
It's a bad news. What's your other down?
So Gentic was my big one, and time.
Hmm.
It's like it's kind of crazy. So ShopTalk does this really good survey after the show. It's like what was good, what was bad, but it's like it's good, it's well thought. And for the last few years, I've said you need to have a third day, because you're. And I
So I
know
have you to thank for this.
we've both been victim of this, right? You don't want to be like one of the speakers on the third day because everyone leaves. So you're like here alone, and you have this great group and this great topic, and there's like 100 or like 50 people there in this huge venue. And I was like, well, I mean, obviously I'm not the one, but I'm like, well, make it a third day, have the show floor be around so people
Right.
stay. They did that. Even with that, and to go to your shadow show comment, and because of the size of casinos, I mean, you definitely
Mm.
get your steps in. It just time was
So many
tough,
steps.
right? So I just felt like there wasn't enough time. It it was hard to sort of do everything I wanted to do because there was like so many good things to do.
Hmm.
And because you've got things to do outside of it. So it's like, how do you work? How do you go outside to meet a person you want to meet that doesn't have a badge, but then go back inside to meet a person that you want to have a badge?
So
And
far.
then you have to eat, and like Shop Talk, you don't want to eat, but Shop Talk is offering, so you're going like all the way over to Seabreeze.
Seabreeze is the only place you can get in.
Right,
I
exactly.
find.
Yeah, for all those that have never been, if you go next year, breakfast and lunch, Seabreeze, my recommendation. So
Right.
time was my down.
We just
Time
killed
was my
it.
down.
We just killed it. All right. So for anyone who followed me on LinkedIn during the event, you'll understand my number one down from the Shop Talk event is the damn badging. And it just seems to me that the private equity overlords at Lumen, I mean Hive, really got over their skis this year and fell down the mountain. With every event had two badges. It had the badge on your chest and then like the badge that they attached to you with an implant. And I thought there was like the wristband was a suggestion, and so
No,
it was not
no.
because one day I
Was yours
tried
on?
to I tried
Yours
I
on
tried
tight?
it was on tight, but then you kind of after you have it on, it kind of loosens it. And by the way, I went in and there was like very stern people at the front
Oh,
of the expo
they
floor.
were not playing around.
It's like the state police.
There was this one guy. They first of all they closed. You used to be able to get in like 10 different ways in terms of not like sneaking, but like there were 10 different entrances in. They made it
Right.
like one in, one out, and they had this big guy. He was big and he was checking.
Right.
Like
You didn't want to mess with him.
no, no, definitely not. Yeah, it was crazy. I remember as a kid, there was those things called the Nantucket bands,
Mm.
right? You put it on, it was like braided, it was white, and then when you got water on it, it shrunk, and you
Uh-huh.
couldn't get it off. It just like eventually just like
Right.
ripped. So we go in and like we get our badges and stuff, and then they're like, "Oh, you've got to put on this bracelet," and it's like a bracelet that has like a a metal string that tightens it,
Yeah,
and she like tightened it too much.
yeah.
And at
You
the
yeah.
time, I didn't really think about it. It was, yeah. I'm still sort of like it's not on me anymore, everybody, but I'm still like having this like like it's like
Yeah.
there.
A
I
little
keep
mentally
reaching for it.
scarred. So I
Yeah.
lost. I mean, Tuesday night, I kind of lost my badge some point during the evening. And then I woke up the next morning and I'm like, I just kind of went la di da, kind of to the floor. Like, I'm sure this is not going to matter. And I quickly learned I'm sure it matters.
Yeah.
And so I had to walk like a half hour to the badge pickup again. And I used that time to talk to the lovely people behind the desk, which they're gems. They're I think I found the staff like universally helpful.
Yeah.
I found the policies often unhelpful.
Yeah. See, this is the
Um,
difference between you and I is the unhelpful policies would have just like frustrated me beyond. By the time
yeah,
I got to those lovely people,
yeah.
you're just
So
like the nicest person.
I told them, "Are you sure? Like, why? If I have a badge, like, why do I need this other thing? And how do you know this is me?" There was no answer to that. And I said, am I supposed to take this off, like, in the shower? She's like, do you shower? He's like, oh, I shower with mine. Like, it dries quickly. She
Yeah.
told me that. Like, you can't make this story up.
Yeah.
You're
It
supposed
was,
to shower with your wristband.
yeah, I would think that, you know, Shop Talk, it was big. I feel like it was bigger. I heard people say it wasn't as well attended, and I couldn't tell
Mm,
if that was like it was more sparse because of the size or it really wasn't as well attended. I would think that Shop Talk would want to figure out a way to be a little more, I don't want to say lenient,
mm,
but accessible,
mm,
right? And like there is this whole component of like turn and margin. So it's like lower the
mm,
price, turn a little faster, and
right.
get more people. So,
I mean,
but
the
yeah,
way I thread the needle here is I think the show floor was slightly less attended. I found the traffic there a little bit less, but
hmm
I think the event itself, our points about the shadow floor, I think really resonate with a lot of people, and we certainly witness it among our own communities.
yeah, the events were, I think you told me Yotpo was like involved in 36 or 39 different events. So, I mean,
Yeah,
there
I
was
mean,
a lot
Yatpo, I
going on
think was
there.
at 100 and like, God bless the people at Yatpo. I think they were involved in 275 events, and there were like 30 people running them all. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I guess my wrap on this would be conferences are great. There are a number of them throughout the year. This is what I would consider one of the best ones just because it's in Vegas and everybody goes, but there are plenty of others as well, some here in New York coming this summer. And it was great. I loved it. I loved our dinner. I loved the content that was in the debate. I thought that the people I met and I meet new people every year were incredible. It was awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
And, in terms of events, we hosted our first standalone event in January with NRF. We are debating holding an event in the fall. And so stay tuned if we'll host a standalone fall event too.
I mean, I'm always up for events. And
Awesome. So that's a big question.
the Watson community is strong.
We're gonna follow up. If you didn't attend the debates, which there was definitely, as you said, there was a lot of FOMO for those who didn't attend. People were wondering like how it worked, what happened. I've already heard like so many people like, I'm gonna copy this format because panels suck. I mean, I think that's a universal belief.
I think
And
that would
half of
also
the
be like
content is panels.
another down for me.
Just
Like too
panels.
many panels. Yeah,
Too many panels. Yep. No, I agree. And I say that as a panelist moderator yesterday.
exactly.
So that's a
All
wrap
right.
for our Shop Talk coverage. And I think the show.
Yeah.
You
Now
know
what
what's
happens?
next, though.
I was gonna say, like, does that happen with? I mean, Jess is such a sort of. I guess it happens because the music's rolling.
Yeah, we have
This,
to
this is
do
our
one.
fatigue. This is our shot talk fatigue
We're
like in
tired.
slow motion. Exactly.
Uh,
All right, my man. Happy
all right.
weekend.
Thank you so much. See you next week.